Dylan. Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
I'll
Oh,
start.
wait,
over.
okay, wait, I'm sorry, Kristen's in charge, I shouldn't have said anything. Kristen, why don't you introduce yourself and tell everybody that you're in charge, okay?
Aloha and good morning, everyone. My name is Kristen. I'll be taking Talon's place for this morning. It is now 10 o'clock a.m. So mahalo for joining us this morning for the Hawaii Tourism Authority's Thursday, January 16th, 2025, Administrative and Audit Standing Committee meeting. As a reminder, today's meeting is being held on our Zoom platform in accordance with HRS section 92-3.7. HTA will establish a remote viewing area for members of the public and board members to view and participate in meetings. At this time, there are no individuals in the remote viewing area at the offices of the Hawaii Tourism Authority. Some quick housekeeping reminders before we get started. For attendees, testimony may be provided through the Q&A or questions and answers function within Zoom. If you have a question and/or would like to testify, we ask that you please use the Q&A feature. Our team will be monitoring the Q&A for your testimony and/or questions throughout the meeting. At the discretion of the chair, we may also unmute you to provide opportunity to ask the question or provide testimony using the audio functionality of Zoom. As we move from one agenda item to the next, the chair will pause to allow attendees the opportunity to provide testimony. We would encourage you to please be prepared as we near the conclusion of each agenda item, as we will move to the next agenda item after this brief pause. Should you wish to provide testimony, we will recognize you and you may then proceed once unmuted. Chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Kristen, and welcome aboard. You're a pleasant respite from Talon. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Can we please do the roll call?
Mahalo, Chair. At this time, I will be conducting the roll call for this morning's meeting. Members, as I call your name, please unmute your microphone and confirm your presence. Please also identify if any other persons who may be with you at this time. Member David Arakawa.
Here, no one else is with me.
Member James Tokioka.
Unmute yourself, Jimmy.
Oh, Member Tokioka.
He's on the screen.
Oh, you mean
Why don't you go to the next person?
Chair McCulley.
Present, alone.
Member Mahina Paishan.
Present and alone.
Member Tadapo.
Present and all by myself.
And then Member James Tokioka.
Jimmy, unmute and say hello. Jimmy,
Member Tokioka, your mic is still muted.
you're still muted. Say here.
Hold on.
Or wave.
Just say here.
Progress.
Present and no one else is in the room.
Thank you. Okay.
Chair, we have quorum.
Okay. That's a close one.
Thank you, Mr. Choi, for bird dogging our roll call. I'd like to move to agenda item 3. This would please go on, Kristen.
Yes, Chair, for agenda item 3, we need a motion to approve the minutes from the July 22nd, 2024 and December 13th, 2024 Administrative and Audit Standing Committee meeting.
Executive Director Pace and Wade.
I hear somebody talking. Is somebody contributing?
David, we cannot hear you, David.
It's not me.
Okay. Hello? All
Say
right, are we
anything.
ready to go?
But I'll move to approve the minutes.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes as read. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, are there any comments or concerns, changes in the minutes as read? Hearing none, can we have a vote?
A roll call, please, Kristen.
Yes, Member Arakawa,
Aye.
Member Tokioka,
Aye.
Chair McCulley,
Aye.
Member Paishan,
Aye.
Member White is excused, Member Apo.
Aye.
Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, mahalo, Chair. We will now move on to agenda item 4, discussion and/or action on the selection of a vice chair for the Administrative and Audit Standing Committee.
Thank you. So actually, that was almost the entirety of our minutes from the December meeting, was establishing a chair and discussing a vice chair, bringing it to the board as a whole. This Administrative and Audit Committee was advised that we would propose a vice chair. I'd just like to make a comment that nowhere in the bylaws is there a establishment of vice chairs for any committees. And it's something that we should perhaps address in our bylaws modification. But as it stands, this committee is going to have a vice chair, and the chair would like to nominate David Arakawa as the vice chair. If there's a second,
Second.
and we'll have discussion. So please, members, I intend to run fairly democratic, open committees, and there are no comments too slight to mention. So please begin the discussion.
Thank you, Chair McCully. So I have 2 points I'd like to I'd like us to discuss. One is AG Cole, can you verify? I haven't had a chance to take a look at the bylaws to confirm that that's true. I didn't realize that the position of vice chair in subject area committees are not actually written in our bylaws as a requirement. Can I just confirm that that is factual?
That's right. It only talks about the chair and that the board may choose the chair.
Okay, and so as a follow-up question, is there a rationale behind that? Does anybody know why that is?
I don't. This is John's.
Director Tokyoka, Jimmy, do you happen to know why?
No, no, I don't.
Okay.
And the may suffices. So I would only guess that in some of the recent boards, maybe quorum or some people not wanting to serve, but this board will have the option, as it says, may, to select a vice chair for the committees. Or if there's a committee that is smaller that doesn't really need a vice chair, then the board will have the flexibility to do that as well. I don't know that that's the history, but I would guess that it's probably why.
Okay, thank you. And then one follow-up question. So just as process, my question is, if we were to proceed and we vote for vice chair, named Member Arakawa as vice chair for this committee, my question is, are we gonna take it back to the full board for full vote, as that has been the process thus far? Question mark.
Mahina, this is addressed to John Cole, the Deputy AG.
Yes, thank you.
Well, the bylaws are silent on vice chairs, but I would assume that the board could change the decision that the committee makes if they want to. So I'm not sure what the committee plans, if they, want the board to approve the choice of vice chair or not. But I think if the board wanted to bring it up as a whole, that they could.
Okay.
I'm sorry, the bylaws aren't any.
No, yeah, thank you. Thank you for stating the facts. Yeah, and I think that's something that we also want to discuss is our bylaws, revision of bylaws as well. Okay, so I bring that as discussion for this committee chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahina. Any other questions, comments, discussion? Hearing none, I'll just opine.
I have one. I'm sorry,
I'm sorry.
Chair.
Yes,
This is Daniel. I just wanted to point out, in terms of operationally, I would recommend a vice chair so we don't have a situation we had before where, for example, Brand doesn't have a vice chair right now. Wait, doesn't have a vice chair. Or no, I'm sorry, but if they're a committee and then the chair leaves or is not able to participate for that day, then we can't have the meeting because there's no vice chair. That's why I would recommend that each of the committees, if possible, And if they're gonna meet often, that they have a vice chair.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. As stated earlier, I think this is something that needs to be addressed in bylaw modification. It's not sufficient to have a policy on this, I don't think. And I'll just again, I've done this in open general meeting. The board establishes committees. The board appoints chairs. The board can appoint any member to those committees. So clearly the board has control of who is the vice chair of this committee or any committee. This committee will make a recommendation and the board will make decisions in open session. So with that said, I've nominated and we've heard a second for David Arakawa to be the vice chair of Administrative and Audit Standing Committee. I'd like to call for a vote if there are no other comments. Please, let's have the vote.
Member Arakawa,
Aye.
Member Tokioka,
Aye.
Chair McCully,
Aye.
Member Paishan,
Aye.
Member White is excused, Member Apol.
Aye.
Chair, you have a motion to pass.
Thank you. Let's move on.
Now we are moving on to agenda item 5, approval of the Hawaii Convention Center space use policy.
Chair, if I can lead that discussion.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to say, I am absent that policy.
It's supposed to be on in your board packet, I was told.
Mhm.
Folks, going into a parking structure, so I'm gonna be out for 3-5 minutes and back on. Okay?
Okay, so, yeah, so it's a policy that we did already institute on January 1st. It just memorialized the procedures that we're following now. This is a HTA policy on how HTA will govern its use of the meeting spaces at the convention center. Basically, the big change is boardroom A and B will now kind of be, well, it's gonna be a part of our offices for HTA. So for board use and everything, we have control over boardroom A and B. Anytime anybody needs space, including HTA personnel, outside of boardroom A and B. So let's say we have a meeting that requires 50 people. 50 people are not going to fit in boardroom A and B. Then it goes directly to the HCC management, and you must sign a contract with the HCC management, and they will take care of all the particulars as far as cost and availability and things like that. So the policy, the main change in the policy is to say that boardrooms A and B is under HTA control as an extension of our offices. But if we need to have meetings outside, because it's a larger meeting, we go straight to the convention center and they will use their particular contract forms and everything. The other thing is, as you know, that the convention center is used by other governmental agencies. Okay, so we have a policy or cost structure for other governmental agencies, whether it's other state departments like Jimmy or county, state, county, and federal people who wants to use the particular facilities. We gave a discount to government government agencies. Okay, other than that, there's really nothing else. It's just memorialize pretty much what we've been doing now. Are there any questions?
Not a question, kind of, Chair, if I could.
Kalani has a question.
Isaac, can you speak to the 3 settlement types? Because I think it's good for people's awareness about how to decide which settlement type is appropriate. And I know that's been a point of tension in the past, which I think prompted this policy change. So I think reviewing the 3 settlement types is important.
I'm gonna have to do it from memory, but we have an HTA settlement type that if it's an HTA function, Colin, do you remember the exact,
It's basically like if it's internal to HTA, it's free. And then there's if it's like us in partnership with somebody, we get half off rent, but rack rate or market rate, food and beverage and AV and smart city.
Right.
And then if it's like outside, I think it's just straight up regular
right,
market rate.
Right. and, actually, the staff came up with this policy, not me, but most.
You are staff.
Yeah, most,
You're one of
the
us.
most handsome guy did not come up with the policy. Okay, but the most important thing that we debated is the question of fairness. If we give a not-for-profit organization or another organization a discounted rate, then because we are a state facility, we have to kind of be fair to everybody across the state to use this. So we wanted to set a policy, right? To make sure that we're fair, straight across the board, no matter who is using the particular space. Any comments? Okay, it was implemented 1/1/2025, and that particular policy also was given to HCC to follow, the convention center. The only one thing which is unofficial, I told the HCC management that if any related party rents space in the center, they are to at least just notify me, so I'll know. Okay, that's the only thing. A related party uses the facility, just notify me. That's the only requirement I made of HCC management. Okay, other than that, Chair, I would entertain a motion to approve our policy.
Okay, I thought it was a non-voting item, as it's parenthetically commented.
Well, this is approval, yeah?
The board has to approve the policy
Yeah,
changes.
So I have a question, Isaac, because you broke up a little bit on my end. So there's a form that's generated.
Yes.
But who generates that form?
The form that's generated that you're speaking of is an HTA form. If HTA is involved in the use of rental, that form must be completed by HTA personnel. If no HTA personnel is involved, then they go straight to the convention center, and the convention center management has their own forms for use of space.
Okay, so let's say Governor Green or Lieutenant Governor Luke want to have a meeting at the convention center. They would call who?
Okay, that's a state agency. If they're gonna use boardrooms A and B, of course, they're gonna come to us, right? But if they want 100 people, right, they're gonna have to go straight to the convention center.
And then the convention center knows the policy of
Yes.
the 50%.
Yeah, yes, absolutely, yeah.
Does
And
that?
usually,
I'm sorry.
Yes, the answer is yes. They have the policy.
Okay, but
And
if it's boardroom A and or B, then the form gets generated through HTA and somebody has to approve it.
Yes,
And that was
several people have to approve it, yeah.
that wasn't the policy before?
There was no approval line on the form before. Now there is.
Okay.
I think the other thing too, Director, for your awareness is usually when the center receives a request and it's to use the settlement type that gives the 50% rate because they're a state agency, et cetera, there's usually a formal letter that the salesperson will ask for that basically says, hey, I, DOH, am hosting in partnership a conference on avian bird flu with all these nonprofit partners, but I, as DOH, am sponsoring this event, and that's why they get the discount. So a letter is requested by the sales team, they know to ask for that. And so in a similar way, if HTA, like we're about to, we're partnering to host the Visitor Safety Conference on the 29th. We will do the letter as HTA and say we're hosting it, and then in partnership with the bid and WIA, et cetera. And so, yeah, there's a process.
Yeah.
Okay.
But remember now, if a governmental agency rents the space, if there's cacao or coffee involved, DAGS has a policy, right? If you, is it 6 hours, Kalani, more than six,
Five.
or 5 hours, then we can feed you lunch,
Yeah.
and 3 hours, we give
Coffee.
you coffee. So that's a DAGS policy we follow. Okay, so it's, we have other restrictions if you're a government agency as far as cacao and coffee and stuff like that.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I would also just note the director, like the nuance of that though, right? So if the nonprofits pay for it, knock themselves out, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay,
All right. So I've been advised that this requires approval by this committee for recommendation to the board as a whole. I thought this was just a board as a whole voting item. Given that, host, can we have a vote, a roll call vote?
well, Chair, can we have a motion to approve the Hawaii Convention Center space use policy?
Um, Please, do we have a motion? I so move.
Second.
Second,
Thank you.
good.
Any discussion?
Now take the vote.
Two questions.
Please.
One is, the policy was, I'll say, re-emailed out this morning. Is there any changes from that as opposed to what was sent out previously? Just want to make sure we're all on the same line as to what we're approving
Not
here.
from the distribution on the 7th.
Yeah, so it was distributed out, it's part of your package, so there is no changes to that, Todd, because that's the policy we've been using. So no, the answer to your question is no. There shouldn't be
Okay.
any
What
changes.
came out this morning was no different than what went out earlier.
Yeah.
The second
Yeah,
question
nothing.
is effective date. So if this is really a policy that needs to be approved by the board, can we retroactively set an approval date? And does that put any risk on the activity that occurred between, I guess, prior to the approval?
Yeah, I'm gonna say, first of all, we've been implementing the policy. We had a break-in period, and then so we didn't have an A&A committee, so I couldn't wait. I wanted to, it was a part of the HCC management contract, which was effective 1/1/2025, and that policy was a part of that contract. So I just wanted to make sure that that was in that date. So I don't think this 15, or how many days, 16-day span would create any kind of jeopardy in our approving the policy today.
Okay, though that statement does raise the question of how are we implementing policy if it needs to be board approved prior to board approval? If
Yeah,
this,
so
again, I don't understand
that's-
all the details around what the change was, but it seems like we should be operating under existing policy until board changes it, if it is requiring a board action.
Yes, and
Do
I
you wanna-
totally agree. That is the method that we've been using, but to say it gently, we haven't had an A&A committee meeting for a long time, so.
Yeah, but I mean, if we, I hear that and I understand the issue, the practical issues it may cause, but if it's a policy that's board required,
I'm
so
not,
isn't a reason to
Right,
jump.
I'm not sure, Todd, if it's board required. This is a contract with the convention center. And so if we change it up after we sign the contract, then they might say, well, then there are other issues, right? You know, the who pays for what or whatever. I don't know if it affects things like that, but I don't think we can. I think that it implements this new policy implements what is the right thing to do, I guess. And and there was an opportunity. I mean, the contract started and we didn't have an administrative audit. In a perfect world, we would have done this before the contract was signed, right? You know, but I think it's all good. And I think it's good that the contractor also agreed, or convention center agreed, that this would would be a good policy, and they've accepted it. So I think in the future we got to try and make sure the committees meet and pass policies before we put them in contracts. But in this case, they felt they needed to do it. So
Okay, this is Daniel. So in practical or in applied terms here, we've been working with the under the convention center's policies and their forms on our space requests in the past. So what we're saying here now is that we are putting certain limits and details on actually our staff and what we can do as HTA. So that it better aligns with both what the convention center is allowing, as well as what is allowable under state rules for requesting of space and food, etc., for our amenities. So we're putting the two together. In the past, we just operated under the convention center's rules of what we can request. We fill out a form. We use the convention center's form, etc., and they had an agreement with us in past contracts about discounts, etc.
Question, Chair, your colleagues.
Yes, go on, Mahina.
So Chair, my question is, of all the voluminous amounts of issues that we need to tackle as a full board, and then specifically in this committee, my question is, why is this rise to the top of something that we should be spending our energy and time around? Why is this a priority at this time?
I think the sequence of the agenda set today, Mahina, was this was presumed to be a pro forma kind of a process for this policy, and we would just take care of it and move on. Instead, it's become a rather full explanation for the policy, and then there's questions about sequencing, timing. You know, I note that this HTA space request form was revised 9/24/24. What generated that modification at that time? The space use policy is designed to explain or elaborate on that form. Suffice to say that I think that the policy is, sufficiently well developed, and I think the oversight of this committee is perhaps about implementation at this point. Is that correct, Todd? You're concerned about how do we implement a policy post, after the fact?
Just to that, right? I think this is a good policy. I like what was written out. I didn't know what the changes were, and so I think we move forward with it. It's just that message of, hey, let's be careful, and let's make sure whether we're having the lack of a committee meeting is not the reason to jump over what the order that we should be doing. Understand
Agreed.
where we are now. Let's get this done and move it forward. We're just asking that question.
Yeah, backdating isn't good for policy or checks. So
Or contracts.
yeah, contracts. All right. So is there any further discussion on this? Hearing none. Again, confusingly on my script, this did not call for a vote. So I've heard that it should have a vote. So can we have a vote on the motion?
Hello, Chair. Member Arakawa,
aye.
Member Tokioka,
Aye.
Chair McCully,
Aye.
Member Paishan,
Aye.
Member White is excused, Member Apple.
Aye.
Chair, your motion is adopted.
Thank you. Moving on.
Chair, we are moving on to agenda item 7, discussion and or action on, agenda item 6. Discussion and or action on modification of bylaws of the Hawaii Tourism Authority.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank Mahina for the goad on the last agenda item, and anybody who needs to put the spurs into the chair is welcome to do that, to get these things moving along. So in previous board meetings, the question of lack of clarity or a need to modify the bylaws has been in discussion. In fact, our minutes of our December meeting had many paragraphs of reference, including with our AG, John Cole, about the need to go through various clarifications of our bylaws. So I wanted this committee to address this. I'm not looking for this meeting to generate textual changes in the bylaws. We're beginning a discussion. We can have a quick follow-up A&A to perhaps focus solely on language and bylaws. But I think that we as a committee should address what we see individually as the lack of clarity in our bylaws or the need to augment our bylaws. Given that, I can lead, or if you guys, any of you made a list to prepare for this meeting, you could ask for the floor. If you aren't with that, I'll begin. One of the first things that I think needs to be addressed is something we addressed earlier, which is the clarification regarding establishment of committees. That's the board's prerogative according to our bylaws. It's been customary at the authority, and we've heard it explained by the chair, and we watched it occur if we had earlier chairs, that the chair would establish the committees and the chair would appoint the chairs of those committees. That's not something that was ever delegated to the chair. And I think that the clarification in the bylaws is overdue. Any discussion on this?
I would agree, Chair. I would agree that we need to take a look at the bylaws to clarify things or to set things that we're already doing in writing and to address new things before they come up, like Member Apol said. Address it up front and then go from there.
Thank you, David. So where or how would the bylaws address the generating of committees? Would that be in a standing committee? Or would that be an agenda item at the beginning of a calendar year for the board? And it would perhaps it would be the board meeting preceding the beginning of the calendar of our year, our fiscal year or calendar year. John Cole or anyone, is there a obvious way to approach this?
Chair, I'll share a thought on that, is that I don't know that we set a specific date or time, and the reason I say that is, as we've seen in my short time on here, is board membership changes at random times, and we need to readjust committees whenever those changes happen, as opposed to tying it to a calendar or fiscal year ending. So that's just my reaction off of the question.
Fair. Anyone else?
Chair,
Yes.
but I think the bylaws state that too, though, right? At any time. So
Right.
that
The
covers,
full board, yes.
yeah, that covers the concerns that Member Apo has. And so I think how it's written, as far as that, the timing wise of it, I think it's covered in the bylaws.
True. In fact, that kind of suggests that instead of modifying the bylaws to address this, we would just have a policy to clarify how the bylaw is implemented.
Yes, I think that would be good. And I also think that I think part of what I thought I heard you talking about is, just clarifying the delineations of what each committee chair or the chair of the board's the responsibilities are. I mean, I don't know if that's kind of what you're trying to do, tying, all of those things together, because in the past, some boards made it clear to the executive, the president and CEO, that they could not go to the Capitol. Some made it clear that they could. And so I know we're still following bylaws that are written, but I'm not sure if you're asking for clarification on that too.
Well, I think it's something, that needs to be addressed, but I wanted to start with the broader subject of our standing committees and the assignment of members to those committees and the assignment of the chair of those committees. which has been customarily been the prerogative of the chair based on folklore, historical custom, I don't know. So, but I would like to clarify that because I think we've had a very difficult time as a board establishing committees, populating committees, and I think it's something that we need to address. So if we do it by policy or modification of bylaw, I'd like to focus on that. So,
Okay. Okay, sorry, I was, I misunderstood part of it.
Yeah.
But I think that's, certainly something we should do, so it's clarified. And I support your wishes for that.
Okay, so John Cole, is this best done by modification of bylaw or by a policy?
Well, if you're talking about committee structure and who appoints the chair and whether there's vice chairs, I would suggest amending the bylaws. And I think what you're doing, Jim, I think it's a good idea to kind of do a review of the bylaws. It's been a while since they've been amended, and there may be things other than committees that, merit looking at in amendments to the bylaws. So I would think a review by this committee might be appropriate to make suggestions to the board. But as far as timing, like Director Tokioka said, the bylaws provide for the board to be able to amend them by vote at any time, but I think taking that first broader look might be within the purview of this committee if you choose to.
Yeah.
That way.
Thank you, John. And Chair, one thing I think is important, in my opinion anyway, is that when these board selections come up or committee selections come up, that, I personally like going through the committees first. And if that committee assignment process falls under this committee or any other committee, so that we don't, half the members are potentially on most of these boards. Because I think some of the things that happen in the regular board meetings, the monthly board meetings, take a lot of time that really in some of the other committees, like in the Budget and Finance Committee and the Branding Committee, a lot of the suggestions go there, and when they come to the board, the debate and discussion is shorter or could be shorter in some cases. So I'm not, I think we can also help ourselves with the boards making some of these preliminary decisions, or these committees, I'm sorry, making some of these preliminary decisions and discussion.
Thank you, Jimmy. And certainly any recommendation we make for modification of bylaws will be debated at the full board and perhaps further modified, or perhaps they'll just thank us for our work and stamp us approved, but we shall see.
That would ever happen, but at least it starts the dialogue.
Well, hope springs eternal. So what I think when in listening to John Cole, what I think I'd like to do is, I don't know if it would be a subset of this A&A Standing Committee, or if we'd have a special meeting of this A&A Committee, so long as we have four people available to perhaps work off of an outline of John Cole's recommendations. He made some at our last meeting in December of things that we should address, that our bylaws have become perhaps imprecise or unwieldy or silent on. And for instance, this committee makeup, it's silent. So we need to address that. So
Chair, Mahia has a
yes.
question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mahia. Oh, she put her hand down. Oh, okay, sorry.
No, but you're on mute. Are
No,
you
I did.
leaving?
No,
Yeah.
not yet.
Oh, no. Okay, I
It's
thought
at
you were
10:50.
waving.
So
Yeah.
that was actually the question I had. What is going to be the process going forward if we're going to do a full review per John Cole's recommendation, and if so, what is the process for that?
John, that's a question for you.
But I think that's what we're trying to figure out, if it would be appropriate for this committee to take a first look. And like you're doing today, Chair McCully, you're asking for areas that we think changes may be necessary. But build off of that, the actual amendments we might make to the bylaws and run it through a committee. I think this one's probably the most appropriate.
Yeah,
And
I
then
think I'll be,
make
yeah, I think-
recommendations to the board after
Yeah.
that work is done.
And Chair,
Okay.
if I may, Chair and
Please.
Vice Chair of the committee, if because this is important, this is foundational and structural. If you can just lay out a timeline so that we can all, you
Yeah.
know, look at sections and however the process be, just that we thoroughly and thoughtfully go through a review process. Thank you.
That's an interesting concept. It would be to break this up into sections of our bylaws and assign them to individual members of the ANA who would be responsible for thinking about it and perhaps conferring with another member from time to time, perhaps if that's so inclined, but as long as it doesn't go serial. But and then report back so that it's not one person trying to put their narrative upon the bylaws. God forbid. So, but some other areas of concern for me and that I'll mention is the clarification regarding the annual evaluation of the CEO, a specified method, a calendar, an expectation to perform by this board. Has been mentioned by one member in particular, we've gone years without evaluations. I asked in preparation for this meeting for the evaluation of our last CEO, and I was surprised to learn that it's not available and that it was never placed in the files. It was done, allegedly, by a single person to evaluate the CEO, and that was the chairman of the board. If I'm under misunderstanding on that, I'd like to be corrected. But if that's correct, that's inappropriate for a single person to do a CEO evaluation and then keep it for themselves. That's not an evaluation at all. And so I'd like to follow what other state entities practice. I noticed that in the previous CEO's evaluation, I did see the outline of the question.
Chair, perhaps if you're gonna talk about personnel matters, you would like to leave it to agenda item number 9.
All
and
right,
not
thank you.
legal.
Thank you for that corrective. Another concern in the bylaw is the powers of the chair. I've brought this up in open session. I think that needs to be looked at. It's appropriate to delegate powers to the chair. I don't think it's appropriate for a chair to assume that all powers devolve to the chair at all times. And so that's a concern I have in any board at any level and with any chair, whether they're benign or despotic. I think that the board's responsible for delegating powers. So I think it should be enunciated. All right, anybody else have any ideas about bylaws that will help us?
I do, just real quick. Thank you for that. And Member Pashan, thank you for that. The bylaws are 4.5 pages long, so it's not a lot. But I think maybe, Chair, if you may put an offer out there on who wants to work on specific articles of the bylaws, we can kind of start with that. But there's not a lot. There's 7 articles. So, there may be some members of this committee that are more focused on, the definitions or the officers or, it's not, like I said, it's not that much, so.
Yeah, thank you, Jimmy. Is the consensus on this committee that that's the correct approach, that we would divide the bylaws into articles and each of us would take an article or two, and at our next committee meeting, we'd give our thoughts and perhaps suggestions?
Just, I don't know if it's a counter comment to that. I mean, they intertwine, right? And so if we split them up, my worry is that we start creating gaps unintendedly that end up happening because things don't ultimately come back together. And it may be, given as Jimmy said, given how short they are, I don't think it's a ton of work to get through the whole thing with a few people.
I agree with Todd and Jimmy. I think they're short enough and the issues are focused enough that we could do it as one document, hopefully.
Okay, Mahina, any thoughts? Bifurcate or divide or do it as a whole, as a group?
I think we should, my preference would be to do it as a whole, as a group, but I think we should, either we do a special meeting and we carve out 2 hours or whatever, just for this topic. And hopefully it doesn't take us 2 hours, but we just focus on, and everybody just prepares to bring their comments. But it is of great importance that we just have, some level of consensus at this committee level and then take it to the full board.
Okay, hearing that, let's see, who haven't I heard from? Staff, Daniel, you have any thoughts on this?
One thing to consider when looking at the bylaws is also we have board policies. So, some things would be in bylaws if they're on the structure of the board, et cetera, things like that. But operational would be in policies like confidentiality statement, who, in terms of voting or whoever, statements in public, et cetera. What the board is supposed to do on a day-to-day basis, et cetera, may be actually in policy, and maybe John can help in deciding which ones are policy-based and which ones would be more bylaw-based in the concept. So there are two avenues for making official, providing better clarity on the operations of the board and authority. So
Yeah, so let's presume that we're going to come up with a working document of initial proposals. Then that'll be reviewed by staff and John Cole, our DAG, and then perhaps you could make a differentiation. This is best addressed by policy versus structural in the bylaws. But we need to get to that point to see where we as members believe change needs to occur. So let's presume that we'll call, or what I'd like to propose is we're going to call a special meeting of administrative and audit, probably in about 3 or 4 weeks, sometime around mid-February or so. Give us time as individual members to review the bylaws, highlight some areas that you think are significant, perhaps use our next meeting as an example of where we see gaps, review our last minutes for December where there was an extensive discussion with John Cole about bylaw modification. And then at that meeting, the agenda will be solely on bylaws. The idea being that we come up with a working document and we have something that then our staff and John can review, and we have something to submit to the board, ideally in the March, April period. The idea is to
Okay,
get it done. Yes, Isaac.
My turn. Okay, so the mid-February meeting, we should kind of like set a tentative date, which do you have any? Oh, no, that's a bad question. Let's do it on February the 11th. No, wait, that's wrong. You can wait. Let's set a date for a tentative date for the meeting, and then set a tentative deadline for all your suggestions. I'll marshal all the suggestions together and then I can distribute it to all you guys. And then we can have a date for the meeting, and then you guys can do your work. 2 hours, one agenda item, just the bylaws. How's that? Okay, that's good, I know. So give me a date, Con.
Well, certainly we're going to take a poll of availability. I'm not presuming that any member.
Okay, so let's,
Yeah.
okay, I'll take a poll of availability.
Yeah.
But as far as suggestions for the bylaws, can we at least set a deadline for that?
Yeah, I would like to propose February 10th
Okay,
for the members to have reviewed the bylaws and to make recommendations as they see the need.
okay, February 10th is the deadline for suggestions. I will compile the suggestions, making sure as they come in, you guys all get a copy of it. And then we'll poll for mid-February for a special one agenda meeting only for bylaw changes. Is that okay with everybody? Daniel, you have a question?
No, but after you finish your dating, I have one other topic I realize I should just bring up now as staff concerns that for the board to talk about. So I'll let you finish your date thing first.
Okay, so, February 10th is the due date for all suggestions, and I'll send you guys all reminders. Okay, I'll send you all remind, Chair, is it okay to include non-ANA committee members as far as suggestions are concerned?
John Cole, is there any issue with other members contributing to ANA consideration for bylaws?
No,
All
I
members
think
are
so.
welcome.
The committee can gather information as it wants through staff or other
Okay,
interested
All right.
stakeholders.
and then Carol will be polling you folks for a mid-February 2-hour one agenda meeting for the bylaws, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Daniel, your concern.
Thank you. Here's one topic that has concerned the staff in the past, and that is clear delineation of subject matter for each committee, so that and also how the committee will take action. So, for example, does something fall under an admin audit, or does it fall under a budget and finance? Also, who makes assignments of or determination if there's a question? So, like say, for example, the way it is structured in some organizations, maybe there's the CEO not the CEO, the board chair or a committee that takes in consideration each of the topics, and then, or if there's a request, and then assigns it to a committee. Right now, we don't have assignment to committees process in place. So that may be a policy, or it could be a bylaw. But that's some area. There's about multiple, the staff ends up presenting multiple times in multiple committees.
Right.
So
Daniel, can I interject this, Chair? As far as the invitation for suggestions for bylaw changes, could you expand it not only for board members, but could staff also give suggestions?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so Daniel, Chair was kind enough to
sure, I'll write it up.
expand. Yeah, then I'll again stack it all up and send it all out to you guys. So just to clarify, the suggestions can come from any board member or staff. And the point of gathering the information will be me. The due date is February 10th, and mid-February will be a special meeting. How's that for summarization?
Thank you, Isaac.
Okay, thank you.
Daniel, did you have more to opine, more to state?
Not right now. I'll
Okay.
work with staff to come up with other issues and then document it.
All right. With that, are there any other comments to make about modification of bylaws?
Sure, I'll just say, I did have a list of things as I went through the bylaws of thoughts
Oh.
of minutes, but I'm not gonna run through them now. Given this process we just set up, I'll put them down on paper and then submit them, so we can keep going.
Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. All right, Mahina, are you getting near pumpkin time?
Yep, I need to depart.
All right, we still have quorum, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks, Mahina.
Bye-bye.
Aloha, bye-bye.
Live to serve. Yeah, okay. All right, we don't have a vote to take on this matter, so host, let's put the spurs in this.
So moving on to agenda item 7, Malo Chair, a discussion and or action on modification of the Administrative and Audit Standing Committee's charter.
Chair, if I could take the lead on this particular agenda item.
Okay, for now.
Okay, so the charter is actually on your committee sheets. And the only change that I wanted to add to this was to add personnel actions. So it does tell you what the ANA committee should be doing, and then it goes 1, 2, 3. And I just want to add a 4 personnel actions or personnel issues. That's it. That's the only change that for now.
Okay, thank you. I did note in my own comments on this agenda item that there is a gap in the A&A charter, and it has to do with we have the express requirement to evaluate the CEO. We have a responsibility to do to execute internal audit controls. That includes code of conduct and integrity, financial integrity, which suggests implementation by staff. So we have oversight of staff. And in reviewing the other standing committees, there are no committees that are assigned to oversee personnel matters.
Yeah.
So I think this is something that our discussion on bylaws would have definitely noticed as we review our bylaws, but it's also something that I had here on agenda item 7 for A&A Standing Committee. So thank you for broaching the subject.
So Chair, would you like personnel matters or personnel issues? Maybe the attorneys can jump in. It doesn't matter. Just put a number 4, personnel issues or personnel matters. Anybody have a preference? John, do you have a preference?
I would say they're similar enough where it doesn't really matter, I would think.
Okay, it doesn't matter. Okay, so we'll stick with matter. Okay, the personnel matters. Just
Yeah.
add a 4 personnel matters.
Yes, a lot of people don't like to be identified as having issues. So we can avoid that. It might be
Oh my
helpful.
gosh.
All right. All right. I will lead here. So under our bylaw, our current charter, we have the right or the obligation of reviewing existing policies and making findings and recommendations to modify and amend those policies. And so if we are going to avoid a bylaw modification to address the establishment and appointment of members and chairs of committees, then I would like this policy to be established by this committee. If, for instance, it's recommended by staff or John Cole that we not modify the bylaw, but instead keep it to policy. The same with evaluation of the CEO. If that's best done by policy, then we keep it within the existing language of our charter, and we develop and utilize a policy. We have, again, something I addressed earlier. The committee has the responsibility to evaluate the CEO. We have no format or schedule for this obligation. If it's policy or bylaw change, then I'd like that to be actualized. And then finally, this is something that is obvious in reading the charter, the last sentence of our charter. The committee shall also be responsible for matters relating to legislative and governmental affairs. I've only been on this board a couple of years. In that time, I've not had administrative and audit address legislative affairs. I've only had it observed it done under the legislative permitted interaction group. The permitted interaction group is designed to be nimble and responsive to changing times of the legislature, but there's a year-round concern with the observation, the oversight of the legislative process, because we are inherently a political creature. We're a creature of politics under 201B. It's been changed a lot. I don't think the board as a whole recognizes how much it's changed given some of the debate that occurs. So I think it's the obligation of A&A to do a review and a report to the board on our current status as an attached agency and how the meaning of 201B has changed. I think that the legislative PIG can be the responsive party. I'm sorry, somebody?
No, nothing, Chair.
Okay, can be the responsive party on a moment-to-moment basis, given the restrictions of the meetings that this committee can have, having to be agendized and scheduled far in advance, while the PIG can meet on the moment opportunely. But we want to avoid redundancies and overlap. We don't have enough manpower to do things twice. We hardly get them done the first time. So we have to clarify the responsibilities between a permitted interaction group and the administrative and audit committee, or we eliminate that from the charter. And A&A no longer has oversight, and we just anticipate that the legislative permitted interaction group will be evergreen, and that permitted interaction group's charter will be better affected, better enunciated. So we know that they're going to review legislation, draft the initial testimonies, do all the things that are necessary to be a successful legislative participant. That's my discussion. I'll open the floor.
Okay, so, Chair, would you entertain a motion to add 4 to the charter, personnel matters?
That's something that will come up in our bylaw discussion, I'm sure, and I will recommend that be included.
So
It's
would you
part
like
of
to
our
defer
minutes.
this, so would you like to defer this agenda item?
I'm sorry, are you referring to agenda item 8 or 9, or are you referring to a discussion now on personnel matters being included in article?
On number 7, just a simple addition to our charter, as stated in the committee. Just adding 2 words for personnel matters, that's it.
I think that's generally enough to add to our admin committee charter.
I think so too.
But you guys are gonna change it in the bylaws too.
Yeah.
The other things that come out of that are going to be more intense, whatever, but I think we could recommend that as a starting point.
So to clarify this, Isaac, if we come out of this administrative and audit committee with that recommendation to modify the bylaws immediately, we'd be taking.
No, it's not, Jim, it's not the bylaws, it's just the charter to our committee description.
That's in the bylaws
Yeah.
too.
It's in the,
Just-
it's in
just-
the
bylaws.
bylaws. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
in both places.
Yeah. So if you want to defer the item, you can. If you just want to add 2 words, so the A&E committee will at least have some kind of guidance of our chart, of our tasks. It would be nice.
John Cole, do you see some daylight between Isaac's understanding and my own?
I don't know. I think the description in the bylaws is the same as the charter or the description
They're the same.
that goes with the committee membership
Yeah.
document and stuff like that. So I
So
think
what does
amending the
mod-
bylaw would certainly do that, but you could, if you want to be more specific in the charter than the bylaws, you could do that as well.
So
Right.
tell me,
So-
what's the legal process for modifying the charter?
I don't know if there is a particular one, you
In the
know,
past,
It's from the bylaws.
when the recommendation is done to the board to modify the bylaws with any change in description of a committee description, committee responsibility, role and responsibility. We actually change, it's a resolution to change the bylaws.
Correct.
How you address charter changes?
Yeah.
to the bylaws.
They're in the description in the bylaws.
Yeah.
That's my understanding as well. So when Isaac made this proposal that we just tweak a few words, I didn't know how we could do that subject unless we have a full board vote tomorrow or next week. We're agendized for tomorrow as a committee. We could bring this up, and ask for an immediate change in the bylaw, or we can have it at the end of the month. And I thought that's what you were proposing, Isaac. Is that the case?
Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure that that the charter was expanded to what we're going to be doing today. So that's up to you folks.
Okay. What is the sentiment of this committee as far as an ad hoc immediate change of a bylaw that has a massive hole in our bylaws? We have no committee oversight of personnel matters at this time specified.
It's the hiring and firing is done by the board for the CEO, and the CEO does the staff. That's why there's no addressing.
Kalani, can you speak into the mic is that you?
Sorry, Chair. I was saying in my mind, the bylaws have the definitions or the descriptions for each of the committees. And so if you folks intend to change it, I agree with Daniel that that's the process, because the bylaws describe the standing committees and their functions. And so if you folks are proposing to close a potential gap, right, that there's no committee to address personnel issues, that you would do that through a standing committee, right? Whether it be admin, audit, et cetera, whatever you folks decide. But the process would be through the bylaws because those committees are defined and their powers are defined by the bylaws. I would also add that I think part of the reason the gap that you're describing exists is because the statute, HRS 201B, describes the powers of the board to hire and fire the CEO. And then the CEO hire and fire staff subject to, and there's that language, right? That clause that's attached to it, but that's statute. And so probably the reason why the bylaws haven't addressed personnel matters, I think, at a committee level is because they're handled by the CEO and then the action with that caveat from the statute.
Kalani, please state that caveat. That is a very important caveat. Subject to, does it say approval by the board?
I gotta go read it because I don't remember it off the top of my head, but I'll do that now.
Yeah, because I think it says approval by the board, huh? No, I don't know. But to leave that out,
right?
Yeah.
I didn't leave it out. I'm just saying that, like, I think
Well, you know what?
again,
if you're gonna state the thing and use it for an argument, you got to state the whole thing,
Okay.
right? Because it's a huge caveat, right? It's a huge caveat, and that tells us everything, right? So your original argument was could be interpreted as, "Hey, board, stay out of it. The CEO does everything," right? But that second,
that wasn't my intention.
but we got to be careful because we're talking about important things, right? So please, if you're going to raise that issue, go read the whole or state the whole thing, right? Okay.
So it's 201B3A7, I believe. Through its president and chief executive officer, provide for the appointment of officers, agents, a sports coordinator, and employees, subject to the approval of the board, prescribing their duties and qualifications and fixing their salaries without regards to chapters 76 and 78, if funds have been approved by the legislature and allotted as provided by law.
That's only for the CEO.
Can I make a point?
Sure.
Yeah, the bylaws themselves, I think, kind of give the authority and day-to-day supervision of its staff to the president and CEO. It's in Article 6, Section 1. So I mean, currently the bylaws, they basically say president and chief executive officer shall serve as executive officer of the authority and be directly responsible for day-to-day operations, including control and responsibility of board policies, administration of the authority's affairs, and supervision of its staff. So I think you could say that the bylaws currently, put personnel matters under the president and CEO. So that could be subject to change if the board itself or through committees wants to, kind of step in to an extent.
Correct. Because the statute is broader, right?
Yeah.
Chair McCauley?
Yes.
I'm gonna have to jump off, and I'm not sure if there are any voting items that are still on the agenda. And I think if I leave, then you don't have a quorum, but if there's no voting, then you don't need me on the meeting anyway.
Not anticipating a vote on agenda item 7, 8, or 9, if there's a 9 and a 10. So I'm not anticipating a vote.
Yeah, and then we need the executive meeting by vote.
That would require a vote. Huh?
I can come back on. I have to close out this other meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I can come back on.
Wait, John, can we make a motion for executive meeting now and just vote now, and then when it's time, just go into the executive meeting?
I mean, if there is no quorum, you're not supposed to like deliberate or move toward any decisions or anything. So I'm concerned. I'm not sure exactly what's going to be covered,
we have quorum now.
Is executive session going to be? Yeah, I know that, but I mean, to continue a meeting without quorum, it's supposed to be just getting information from testifiers, which could be staff. But
Right,
there's
there's
be a
gonna
lot
be,
of
there's no
discussion among
vote,
board members
there is
about,
no vote in executive session.
okay, if there is no vote, but I'm just saying as far as discussion between board members, there shouldn't be much other
Correct.
than, you know, the information that might be presented by staff. Or
Yeah,
Okay.
as I
others.
said, I can come back on, but
Okay.
for the probably the next 15 minutes, I'm gonna have to be paying attention to this other meeting because I have to speak at it.
Okay, that's a good one.
So if you guys want to continue, I can jump back on in this meeting. I'm just letting you all know.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Jimmy.
Okay.
You
Okay.
are
I'll
due.
jump back on as soon as I get done over here.
All
All
right.
right.
Okay,
Appreciate it. John Cole,
Yes.
so in continuing reading section 1 of Article 6, the last sentence, the president, at each meeting of the board, the president and CEO shall furnish the board with such information and make such recommendations as shall be necessary to effect the purpose of the authority and for the proper administration of its affairs. So proper administration of its affairs would obviously include oversight of personnel. Agreed?
Mhm. Yeah.
That should be, according to this sentence, that would be predicated on the president CEO making a report or recommendation, furnishing the board with that information. Okay, would you agree with that interpretation
Yeah, I follow.
of the language? So the point that I'm getting at is much is known about activities in any organization, and the board has various sources and which would lead to concerns. And we would need to have some way to effectuate calling our president CEO for an accounting that might not have been forthcoming otherwise. I'm not suggesting anything nefarious here. I'm just suggesting this is the common way organizations operate. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I don't see a problem with that.
Yeah. So I would suggest then that somehow the board needs to have some means of effectuating that oversight.
Right.
And that's why the necessity of either having policy or bylaw that allows that board, explicitly allows the board to have the CEO furnish information rather than on a voluntary basis. And I'm not suggesting that this has anything to do with choices made by current CEO. I'm just suggesting on a general basis that that is a check and balance, if you were. Between
Yeah, I don't see a problem with that at all if the bylaws are changed. I was just pointing out that as they're currently written, it seems to kind of put the personnel matters under the president and CEO.
solely with the CEO.
Right. I mean, it's not assigned to any particular committee.
Policy, I mean, the bylaw is more specific clearly than the statute.
Yes.
And I think that's the purpose of bylaws.
Right. To clarify.
You
and
go to
further-
policy,
Yeah.
and then you have the joker interpreting the policy that actually controls the whole shebang, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, so
Or papers.
anyway, members' discussion on this, while that's what we can do while Jimmy's absent, was we could discuss.
So I'll share a couple of things because there was a number of things put on the table through all that discussion. Regards to oversight of personnel issues, I agree that we should have something so that we have an understanding as to when we have personnel issues that need to be dealt with at a board level, where they go. That said, I'd also want to make sure that the language is careful enough or maybe broad enough so that it's not seen as the board stepping over the line that should exist between board and leadership. And so I think that's just something we look at. I also agree, I mean, we talk about charter, but really the charter is set in the bylaw. So I agree it's a bylaw amendment. My preference on that is that we try to do it all at once. And the reason I feel comfortable with that and not trying to push something through too soon, and this is just me, so glad to hear other opinions, is that, I mean, the reality of committees, while they have some subject matter jurisdiction, they have no power. in regards to affecting anything. And so if this committee decided to take up a personnel matter, again, we're not going to make a decision to change anything. We're going to make a recommendation to the board. And so I don't think there is any problem with us doing that. We're in an open meeting, it's fully agendized and all those pieces. So the rush to get that language of the bylaw changed, I don't think is that important, because I think we can address what we need to without causing a problem. The last thing is something, Chair, that you brought up in regards to the last sentence of what's in the bylaws is what we're calling the charter of this committee, and relative to the PIG. Just my view again is that language ought to stay. And this goes back to the discussion we had at the general meeting, the board meeting previously, which was there's a whole bunch of planning that needs to go on about what kind of positions we're going to take and what we need to set up. I think that should happen at the committee level where it's agendized and we have the opportunity, public has opportunity to view it. We have opportunity to take testimony, and therefore it should stay there. The PIG is there, as you said it earlier, Chair, is to be reactive and flexible enough to do things quick as we're going through legislative session. And I think that's from a statutory intent standpoint, that's the intent of PIGs, is for those types of things that can't be done at a committee open meeting level. And so I think we need to maybe we need to articulate that better amongst ourselves, but split those duties up and identify what really needs to be in a PIG and keep it limited to that. The rest be handled within this committee. That's my sharing. Sorry.
Don't apologize. Well said.
Well said. Agree with Todd's sharing. Thank you, Todd.
Yes, and
Yes,
that was
Daniel.
my when you had asked that question about the legislative issues, legislative government affairs, I agree the same. The setting of what are the positions that then the PIG can operate under needs to be discussed in the open session and a longer time, as well as there may be other planning for going forward about collecting more information on certain positions in order to establish a position. And that should be something in a committee, as Todd had mentioned.
Okay, so point of order, what do you want to do with 7?
I'm sorry?
What, we're on agenda item number 7. What do you want to, should we just defer it?
Well, I think what's been revealed is that 6 and 7 have great overlap, if not the exact same subject. So, but I made that distinction when I was envisioning the agenda because I didn't know where bylaw would occur and policy should be the means. And I also, because I'm the chair of the A&A, I spent more time thinking about it. And you know, nothing clarifies your mind like a crisis. So having to do the first meeting, I thought I needed to really understand A&A's charter and its gaps. And so that's what I reflected in Agenda 7. So I think our discussion on 6 and 7 were complete enough that we understand how to proceed, and we have that already calendared, and February 10th. All of these items that I just specified are all going to be part of our mid to late February discussion. So thank you for the prompt. Is there any more discussion on item 7?
So last quick question, I jumped to the assumption that there isn't a separate charter document that identifies the charter of these committees, and it's all within the bylaws. Is that correct?
Yes, I started using the term charter because that's I think the proper term for the establishment of the responsibilities and the powers of any group, you know. And so specifically the permitted interaction group didn't have a fully fleshed bylaw of what its responsibilities were. And the memorandum that we do each year, the resolution, is the charter, I believe, for the PIG. Is that correct, Daniel or Isaac or John Cole, as you see it?
There actually is a definition of what the type of PIG that we are utilizing for this legislative PIG, and that actually is the roles and responsibility, with the that resolution being the guiding the guidelines, which position it can take, but the definition, I think John Cole has it about what kind of pig this is, and it must only stay in line with the positions that the board has approved.
Right, that's in the statute for the legislative pig. It's basically the permitted interaction group is established to present, discuss, negotiate any position that the board has adopted at a meeting.
So in that sequence of affairs, you would think that the Administrative and Audit Committee with the responsibility for legislative matters would have brought to the board those positions to consider. And the board would then have adopted those policies that they saw or positions that they saw fit to, and then the legislative pig would have its direction. Agreed? That's the sequence?
Right.
I would prefer that too, in terms of operationally for us as well as the staff.
What do you think, Todd? I see you thinking hard.
Yeah, no, I think that's the right way to go. But what I was going to say, just to disclose to everybody and be upfront, is I don't think we're in that perfect situation right now, given that Ledge yesterday, and we're having our first pig meeting in 40 minutes. And so just so you're all aware that the plan for the pig meeting is to give a recommendation to the board in regards to that resolution for what issues we will be supporting as an authority. Now, again, I believe as we go forward, that ought to be coming out of this committee. But given where we are, that's something we're going to at least address and recommend to the board to look at. So just short term, how it's going to go, long term, how it should be.
Agreed, Todd, and without any reference to topical events, our hair is on fire in terms of the legislature's in session. We're all at great peril. So we have to be better equipped next session. We really got to do better.
And that was what you brought up and was discussed at the last board meeting, right? Is that this language for at that time we're talking, not the pig needs to have some longevity, but it's really this committee that should be handling that, I think is what we're seeing from the discussion today.
Yeah, the great thing is this committee, all committees are evergreen. We're standing committees, right? The pig can be as well, but we are. So at this moment, we are in peril because our staff is shorthanded, has been for 2 years now, in my terms on the board, but especially in the last months, we're very shorthanded. And we don't know what these bills are going to amount to over the next week, but we know there'll be bills that we have to prepare ourselves for. We have to take positions on. We have to have our testimony in place. So it's going to be a real triage that's going to occur in the next 2 weeks. Triple referral committees begin, I think, in 2 weeks. Next week closes out legislation, and I think the week after begins the triple referral calendar. Is that correct, David or John, or as you recall?
Definitely next week, the bill introduction ends, and I think you're probably close on the triple referral. I don't have the schedule in front of me, but sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So good. I think we're in agreement, and I'm glad Todd is the chair of the Legislative Permitted Interaction Group and is sitting at this meeting because we won't have to go through any redundancies. He knows what our discussion is, and he can act accordingly as the chair of this year's pig. We'll all help him put lipstick on this pig. Let's see. Anything else on agenda item 7?
No, I think we beat it to death.
I'm sorry?
I think we're finished with the discussion.
Okay, thank you. So no motion to make, pass, or not. So our host, please.
Mahalo, Chair. So are we moving on to agenda item 8? Okay. So this is for discussion and/or action on legislative and government affairs.
Again, we've jumped ahead of our agenda item and discussed it
That was the point of order.
in a fulsome manner. So I I don't think there's anything to add there. Is there? No? All right, hearing none. Host, our next agenda, please. If,
Wait, Chair. Now we need Jimmy to vote for the executive meeting.
given that, I'd like to call for a recess for people to go take care of other distractions. They have occurred. And I think given Jimmy's estimation and then Todd's hard stop, which is also, I believe I'm on that PIG as well. I don't know if any other present cast of characters is, but that starts in at 12, huh? Or 12:30?
12, 35 minutes.
Yeah. Okay, so why don't we take a 5-minute break? Somebody up who knows how to do it can text Jimmy and see what his schedule is. And then if he's not able to come back in 5 minutes, then we'll deal with our agenda accordingly.
Okay.
All right, 5-minute recess.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Do you need a card? Do you need me to?
Hello.
Okay.
I'm back now.
They recessed for 5 minutes, waiting for you to come back. So
David,
back.
I'm back. I don't know if everybody's gone. Is everybody gone?
Yeah.
No.
Oh,
Just
no.
5 minutes. Recess for 5 minutes.
On the same link.
Yeah.
Alright.
We need a vote to go into executive session.
Okay, I'm done now. So I'm all yours. Okay.
Yeah. We're just gonna go use that. Yeah.
Okay. Kristen, can I ask you a favor? This is Dave. Oh,
Yes, of course. Sorry, go
can
ahead.
you send me the link again? Because I have the link on my phone, but believe it or not, I cannot find the link on my computer.
Sure, this is for the public session, correct?
Oh, no. For the speaker
Oh, for
session.
executive.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah?
Let me resend it.
Yeah. Okay. Alrighty. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, Kristen, this is Ina from
Hi,
Aloha
Ina.
Data. Hey,
Yes.
I'm gonna go prepare in the exec session now.
Okay,
Just to
sounds
let you
good.
know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, hey, Isaac, I'm back.
I'm back.
Okay.
I'm back. I'm in.
Hey, Dave.
Hey, how's it?
Good.
I
Jim,
lost.
you're the only one that allows us health breaks. Thank you.
Oh,
That's a sign, Jim.
Gentlemen,
Yes.
do we have any idea of how much longer this is gonna be?
Well, there's a hard stop at 12.
Carol's asking for a 10-minute grace.
Oh,
So it's not-
11:50. 11:50. Hard stop at 11:50.
Okay.
was that Jimmy talking just now?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
back.
hi, Jimmy.
Put your face on so we know you're back.
Yeah, I'm intending as the chair to end this within 20 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. But we do have a hard stop at 11:50.
Yeah, but I'm gonna give a gap of time between stopping this and Todd cranking up his permitted interaction group because he might need time to catch his breath. Organize his notes.
And what was that pig on?
12 o'clock. The legislative permitted interaction.
Legislative.
Yeah. And it's important because tomorrow I believe he's going to submit his recommendation for the memorandum for the resolution for 2025.
And that's what we're gonna be talking about when we come back in?
No, when we
No.
come back in, we're going to see if there's a need for executive session and we're going to discuss
One issue.
issues that may, be controlled by executive session.
Okay.
Yeah, my camera's off, but I'm back whenever we're ready to go.
Okay,
Okay,
1, 2.
we have David?
David's,
Yeah.
David, are you on?
Yes, yes, yes. Oh, I got it.
1, 2.
Yes. I'm
Sure.
trying to get on my computer. Thank you. I'm trying to get.
Okay, Jim, you're on.
Okay, post agenda item 8.
Yes, discussion and or action on legislative and government affairs.
Okay. Whoops. All right, we have matters to discuss that pertain to personnel and potentially and procurement, depending on what's brought to our attention and potentially the executive session. So I'd like to have a motion.
I will so move.
Wait, Chair. So on agenda number 8, are we done on agenda on number 8? So if you say we're done, then we can move on.
Yeah, there was nothing to pass on, and I thought I made a dismissive comment, but I guess I wasn't explicit. So
Okay, so we're following.
we're closing off agenda 8, and I asked the host to bring up the next
Thank you.
agenda item.
Yeah.
Okay, so
At this-
Mahalo, Chair.
Yeah,
So
So-
then agenda items 9 and 10 is as you said, the discussion of personnel issues and the procurement and vendor issues. That's reserved for the executive session.
Yes, and so
Yeah.
John, can you make a motion for our executive session, or do you want me to do it?
I'll give the reason for going into executive session. Statutorily, it's the exceptions under section 92(5)(a), 4, to consult with the board's attorneys on questions and issues pertaining to the board's powers, duties, and liabilities. Subsection 8, to deliberate or make a decision upon matter that requires consideration of information that must be confidential pursuant to law. And possibly subsection 2, to consider officer or employee matters affecting privacy.
Perfect.
thank you, John. So I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
This is Dave Arakawa. I will make the motion to go into executive session based on the subject matter of these agenda items and the Attorney General's directions.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Is this a roll call vote?
Yes, Mahalo, Chair. Member Arakawa,
Aye.
Member Tokioka,
Aye.
Chair McCully,
Aye.
Member Paishan is excused, Member White is excused, Member Apo,
Say aye.
Member Apo,
You're mute.
Aye.
Mahalo. Chair, the motion is adopted.
We have to go into that other room now.
Thank
Okay,
you. We'll
but-
not go into executive session, just for any participants, not members of the board the committee going into session. When we come back from that, I'm going to immediately adjourn, and because some of us have other committees. And so I just wanted to let you know not to hang your hat on any more of this fun and festivities. Okay? Thank you for your attendance. We'll now go into executive session.
Okay, we look at the other link, right? There's another link.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Yes,
yes.
so
Go to the other link.
Yeah, so
When-
members of the committee should have received a link for the executive session.
This is what brand something.
From Cal.
It'll be from the branding account instead.
Does
All right.
everybody see it?
Got it.
I'm
Okay,
firing
thank
it up
you.
now.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Everybody got it?
Yeah,
Yeah, I got it.
yeah.
I don't,
Is that the other one?
no.
One moment.
I see executive session now. Yeah.
Oh, Kristen, did you send it?
Yeah, it's under Administrative and Audit Standing Committee, January 16th, executive
No.
session.
This is branding something, right?
Yes, one moment, please.
Yeah, one moment.
And then just be sure to leave the public session, Chair McCully.
Okay. Au revoir.
Is everybody on?
Not yet.
This is the exciting part.
Hello, anybody back with me? I see 10 participants, 7 attendees, 3 panelists. I'd like to thank all the attendees for their commitment, diligence. Carol, thank you for getting me the policy. I actually got it out of the board packet after I was reproached that it had been sent out.
I'll start. Hello, chairs, is the meeting adjourned or is the executive?
I'm just bringing it back because we do still have 10 participants and I'm just going to advise them that lacking quorum, I'm adjourning the meeting.
Okay, mahalo, chair.
This meeting
With
is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Alrighty, mahalo. This concludes the January 16, 2025 regular administrative and audit standing committee meeting. Mahalo for joining us today. Ahui ho.